Hey there, this is Anthony from mycodeteacher.com, and in this lesson, I'm going to show you how to do some simple animations using the UI view class methods that allow you to commit animations. So, when you first start dealing with animations, you might be very confused as to where you should even begin. What classes to use, if you need to make any instances of certain objects and whatnot. Believe it or not, as it turns out, the iPhone actually animates everything for you. All you have to do is tell it what to animate, and it basically fills in all the blanks. So there are certain type of predefined animations. For example, changes in opacity, changes in size, location, color, stuff like that. That when told to do so, the iPhone will automatically animate. So as basically you have a starting point and an ending point, and the iPhone will fill in the animation in the middle and connect the starting point and the ending point. So all you have to do is make the changes. So without further ado, let's actually get started here. So we're going to make a new project, of course. As always, we're going to choose window-based application. So we're going to make a pretty simple application. We'll name it animations, and in the application we're going to have a label and two buttons. The first button, when pressed, will toggle the opacity of the label, so it'll either animate it to no opacity, or if it already is at no opacity, we'll animate it to 100% or 1 opacity. And the second button, when pressed, will move the label from one location to another. So let's begin by opening mainwindow.zib here. And what we're going to do is create those two buttons. So we're going to drag right into the window. The first button we will call, or we will title, change opacity. The second button we will title change location. So now we're going to create the label that all the animation is going to be done to. So now what we need to do is make an outlet in Xcode for our animations app delegate class that we can connect this outlet to the label that we just created so that we can animate it from code. So IB outlet UI label for animating. Now be sure to save this, and now we can go back to Interface Builder and connect from the application's delegate object to the label that we just created. So connect from the animations app delegate instance to the animate me label and connect the label for animating outlet. Now we need to go back to Xcode and we need to make available to Interface Builder the two methods that are going to be executed when either button is pushed, and then we need to connect those buttons to their appropriate method. So to keep it simple, we'll create two methods here in the header file, one called change opacity and the other called change location. Now again, save this, and in Interface Builder we can now connect the buttons to their appropriate action. So right click and drag from the change opacity button to the animations app delegate instance and connect the change opacity location or change opacity method, and do the same thing for the location button. Now that that's done, we can implement the methods and actually do the animating. So before we get started here, we're going to look at the documentation, and we're going to look up UI view. Now if we go down a little bit here, you can see that there are a bunch of class methods just for animating views. It's pretty self-explanatory what each method is for, except maybe the begin animations and commit animations method. But the others, by the method title or header, you can very quickly figure out what they do or how they modify animations. So when you're about to animate something, you begin by calling the begin animations context method. Then, after calling to that, you make the changes in the view to any subviews that you like, make any changes that you want to make, and then once the changes are done, you call to the commit animations method, and the iPhone will do the rest for you. So now we'll see exactly how simple that is. First, we're going to fill out the change opacity method. So first, we're going to need an if statement here to store the new opacity that we're going to change the label to. So float new opacity. Now we're going to close an if statement here and set what the new opacity is going to be. So if label for animating alpha, alpha is a property that belongs to views that stores their opacity, equals 1, new opacity equals 0, else new opacity equals 1. Now we're going to do the animating here. So in brackets here, UI view begin animations nil. So you could pass in the animations that you want, but we're just going to do that in between the begin animations context call and the commit animations call. So context nil. Then we're going to do the animating here. So label for animating alpha equals new opacity. Then UI view commit animations. So now let's build this and see what happens so far. And you can see what the opacity is toggled, but it's animated. So instead of simply appearing or disappearing, it actually fades in and fades out. Of course, that's all done for you by the iPhone. Now, we have a warning here, and that's of course because we didn't implement the second method, so let's do that now. IB action, change location. So first we need to do is get the current frame of the label for animating label. So CGRect. A CGRect is a structure that holds two other structures, so it's a C struct, and it holds one structure called origin that stores an X and Y coordinate for the location of or origin of the view or the label, and the second struct is a size struct called CG size, and it stores height and width of the view. So CGRect frame equals label for animating frame. So a frame is in this case a CGRect or a struct that stores origin and size, and it is a property of a view and any of UI view subclasses. So a UI label is of course a subclass of UI view, and so it has a property called frame, and that property, calling to that property, returns a CGRect or a struct containing all that information about size and origin. So now we're going to simply change the origin. So frame origin equals CG point make is a function that creates a CG point struct and returns it. CG point make, we're going to pass in, let's just throw in some random numbers here, 20 and 100. Now let's give the label this new frame, but of course we want to animate it, so begin animations nil, context nil, label for animating frame equals frame. Of course now we've modified this frame, now we're going to pass in this new frame and tell the label to change its frame, and then we're going to commit the animations and close the method. So let's build this here. So now the opacity works and change location. Now of course we picked a totally random spot, but you get the point. So you can see that animations with the iPhone is actually very simple. Now, you can do some more complex animations using some C libraries that are offered for the iPhone, but you can see here that using some very basic UI view class methods, you can get a lot of the animations done for you. Well, that concludes this lesson. I'm Anthony from MyCodeTeacher.com. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you tune into future lessons. I'll see you next time.